Imagine a food so powerful that it can sit on your shelf for 10 to 20 years and still be completely safe to eat. No refrigeration, no preservatives, no fancy packaging. This superfood kept Native American warriors running across the plains for days, fueled entire tribes through brutal winters, and was so valuable that it was used as currency. Its name? Pemmican. Today, I am showing you exactly what it is, why it is 100 times better than anything you will find in stores, and how to make your own version at home. Stick around. This might be the most useful survival food you will ever learn. Pemmican isn't just a catchy name. It is a direct line back to the Plains Cree language, and every time you say it, you are speaking a word that has been rolling across the prairies for centuries. The original Cree term is Pemmican, built from pimi, which means fat or grease. That is not just a fun fact, it is the entire philosophy behind this food: energy, survival, and smart use of every part of the animal. The word Pemmican is still written in Cree syllabics today, and it was the Plains Cree dialect that gave English speakers the version they ended up borrowing. Here is where it gets interesting. Fur traders, explorers, and even the Hudson's Bay Company all adopted the Cree word pretty much as is. Early English records show pemmican popping up in trade ledgers and journals between 1735 and 1745. That is almost 100 years before the first protein bars ever hit a factory. The name stuck because nothing in English could quite capture what this food meant on the plains. It was not jerky, it was not stew, and it definitely was not trail mix. So next time you hear pemmican, remember, you are hearing a word that traveled straight from Cree camps and buffalo hunts into the vocabulary of explorers, traders, and survivalists, and it is still here, outlasting every food fad in the book. Now, what actually goes into this legendary superfood? Let's get into the ingredients that made it famous. So what is pemmican really? Imagine a superfood engineered for survival, but with zero factories, zero preservatives, and zero marketing hype. At its core, pemmican is built from just 3 things: dried lean meat, rendered animal fat, and if you are lucky, some dried berries. That is it. No mystery powders, no unpronounceable ingredients, no sugar crash lurking around the corner. Let us break it down. First, you start with lean meat, traditionally bison, but elk or deer work too. The meat is sliced thin and dried until it is brittle, then pounded into a fine powder. Next comes the fat, usually rendered from the same animal. This is not just any fat, it is carefully melted and filtered until it is pure, stable tallow. Finally, a handful of tart berries, think cranberries, chokecherries, or Saskatoon, gets tossed in for a pop of flavor and a little vitamin C. When you mix these together, you are not just making food, you are creating portable fuel. The blend gets pressed into dense cakes or bars. Each chunk is packed with energy, protein, and nutrients, and it is designed to survive months or even years of travel in a pack, a pocket, or a canoe. Forget the granola bar, this is the original trail ration, built to outlast blizzards, river crossings, and endless miles. The genius is in the simplicity: 3 ingredients, infinite shelf life, and enough punch to keep a hunter or explorer moving when everything else runs out. That is the architecture of pemmican, pure, practical, and way ahead of its time. Forget everything you know about energy bars. Pemmican wasn't just a snack for the road, it was the fuel that powered entire empires across wild frontiers. Imagine explorers and fur traders hauling canoes over frozen rivers, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police riding across the Yukon. What kept them moving? Not trail mix, not jerky, but dense, gritty slabs of pemmican, each one a pocket-sized powerhouse with a secret weapon: calorie density. Let's talk numbers. A single pound of traditional pemmican, just dried meat and rendered fat, sometimes with a handful of berries, delivers about 3,200 calories. That's nearly double what you would find in a pound of most protein bars, and with zero added sugar, no preservatives, and nothing you can't pronounce. For centuries, this was the original meal replacement, the difference between survival and starvation when the next meal could be weeks away. The Lewis and Clark expedition, the fur brigades of the Hudson's Bay Company, and even the RCMP all logged pemmican as a staple. Their supply ledgers show barrels of the stuff packed for months-long journeys. One historian puts it like this: without pemmican, the fur trade would have stalled halfway up the river. Here is where pemmican leaves modern snacks in the dust. It doesn't just keep you going for a few hours. Properly made, it stays fresh for years, even decades. No refrigeration, no fancy packaging, just pure, engineered efficiency from a time when survival depended on it. That is why, when the stakes were highest, pemmican wasn't just food, it was the ultimate trail fuel, and everyone wanted a piece. Picture this. Pemmican, the original protein bar, suddenly becomes the most controversial food on the continent. In 1814, Governor Miles MacDonald of the Red River Colony drops a bombshell. He bans the export of pemmican. On paper, it is about protecting settlers from going hungry. In reality, it cuts Métis producers off from their main customers, the fur traders of the Northwest Company. The ban does not just ruffle feathers, it lights a fuse. Métis traders led by Cuthbert Grant refuse to back down. They organize convoys, run blockades, and defend their right to trade. The struggle explodes into open conflict, raids, skirmishes, and finally the Battle of Seven Oaks in June 1816. The Métis win, but the real casualty is trust between communities. All of this drama swirls around pemmican, a food so valuable it could tip the balance of power. But there is a deeper cost hiding in the background. Every block of pemmican depends on the bison, and as demand surges, the herds begin to vanish. In the early 1800s, bison still number in the tens of millions. By the end of the century, fewer than 2,000 remain. The collapse is not just about food, it is an ecological disaster and a blow to indigenous food sovereignty. The loss of bison means the loss of a way of life, a knowledge system, and a food technology that had sustained the plains for centuries. The story of pemmican is not just about survival. It is about who controls the food, who gets to thrive, and what is left when the land itself is pushed to the brink. The techniques that kept pemmican from spoiling were not just clever, they were hard-won, born from centuries of careful observation and respect for the animal. Next, we will see just how much skill and science went into making pemmican last through any hardship. In the heart of the prairie, pemmican began with lean bison meat, sliced thin and hung on wooden frames to dry in the open air. The goal was absolute dryness, less than 10% moisture, so the meat would keep through seasons. Once brittle, the strips were crushed on rawhide or stone, pounded with wooden mallets until they became a coarse powder. Nearby, kidney and back fat simmered over a low fire, rendered until every trace of water vanished, leaving only clear tallow. Hot fat was poured into the powdered meat, sometimes with dried berries, and kneaded by hand into a dense, nourishing cake. Every step was deliberate, every scrap used. The finished mixture was packed into rawhide toreau, cured bison hide sewn tight, built for months of travel. Women led the drying and pounding, passing skill from mother to daughter, while men hunted and rendered fat. Nothing wasted, every part honored. This was survival, memory, and craft in one. Ready to make your own pemmican? Here is the part where tradition meets science, and where a registered dietitian steps in with some ground rules. First up, temperature. If you are drying meat at home, you need to hit an internal temperature of at least 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not just a suggestion. It is the USDA line in the sand for killing off bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli. Do not trust your oven dial, use a food thermometer, and double check. Next, the fat. Rendering is not just melting, it is about driving out every last drop of moisture. Keep your fat simmering above 200 degrees Fahrenheit, ideally in the 225 to 250 range, until it runs clear and stops bubbling. Any water left behind is an open invitation for spoilage. Once you have mixed your meat powder and hot tallow, cool the batch quickly, ideally below 50 degrees Fahrenheit for the first day. After that, store your pemmican in airtight, oxygen barrier packaging. Modern vacuum-sealed bags or mylar pouches work even better than old-school rawhide. And here is the deal. For true long-term storage, keep it in a cool, dark place, below 50 degrees if you can. One last thing. Homemade pemmican is only as safe as your process. If you skip a step, you are not making survival food. You are rolling the dice. Always check local food safety rules before you share or sell. Ancient wisdom, modern caution. Today, we obsess over shelf-stable snacks, but none outlasts the original protein bar, Pemmican. 10 years on a shelf, no preservatives, and more calories per ounce than anything in your pantry. Turns out, the smartest survival hack isn't new tech, it's ancient native wisdom. So, what's in your emergency kit?